Bonjour mes amis, hi guys. I get to spend some time with the popular 2018 release Patek Philippe Aquanaut Chronograph reference 5968A, A standing for acier or steel, and I wanted to share my first impressions. The sporty and contemporary nature of this piece is obvious. Patek describes the design as youthful and dynamic and opted for a self-winding flyback chronograph with date to match the character of this watch. It's very popular among bankers because it's got orange on it and is really hard to get. True story, a well-heeled acquaintance was desperately looking for this model and resorted to writing a letter to the mothership in Geneva. They granted his wish and he was invited to pick it up in a boutique here in Hong Kong. Due to the excitement, I suppose, he let a rather careless employee cut off the excess strap too short, which resulted in one of the two straps that this watch comes with, a black and an orange one, to be too short. Amusing, isn't it? Oh well, if you can spend over 40 grand on a watch, you can probably drop a few more $100 on a replacement strap. Yes, my friend, you heard well. Once cut, there is no adjustment possible. Well, only to make it shorter. No relief adjustment built in the clasp, so this might be a bit uncomfortable if you live in a country that gets hot sometimes, which is pretty much anywhere. And given that it's a sporty piece, you're even more likely to wear it across different environments. Now, before we talk about the dial and movement, let's talk about the size. The Aquanaut wears as full on the wrist as its nominal diameter can suggest, more than any round watch. And in this case, we have here a large 42.2mm, and you can see how all four corners extend to cover a lot of wrist estate. One detail I really like is the subtle angles in the inner bezel at the 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10 and 11 o'clock positions. As you would expect, the brush and polish finish are impeccable, but the overall case is fairly squared, so it doesn't exactly feel as precious as Patek's dress watches. The lugs are also squared in nature, the pushers rectangular. It's not as sexy or refined as I was expecting to some extent. The dial though is quite fascinating, from the geosphere-like grooves to the subtle color gradient to the orange outline of the minute track. As a chronograph and even as a watch, you don't get too many information though. You might have already realized how static this dial is in the absence of a running seconds hand, while you just get a single 60-minute chronograph counter. It's a design choice as much as a functional choice here by the brand. Having said that, as the caliber is a vertical clutch, you can keep the seconds hand of the chronograph running if you don't mind to see those minutes accumulating as well, and it shouldn't cause any further wear on the movement or run down your power reserve. On the back, the caliber CH28250C is on display. It's 30mm by 6.63mm, automatic winding, 4 Hz, 35 joules, Patek seal. That's their own seal that they attribute to themselves for a job well done on the finishing. The chronograph pushers are rather stiff, not as refined as a Vacheron, not even as Zenith El Primero, if I must be frank. The main issue I have is with the reset, which is also the flyback button, being a lot stiffer than the start-stop button. When you see to what length Lange obsesses to make the interaction with their watches a tactile pleasure, I feel like Patek just doesn't measure up right now. The crown also is a disappointment. Unscrewing and screwing back has little to no feel, which is a bit unnerving, and the winding has zero resistance, which isn't as satisfying as, again, a Lange's cushion-like smooth winding that lets you know you're doing something. The power reserve is quite reasonable at 45 to 55 hours. So given the price tag, I would personally enjoy a lot more a Vacheron Constantin Corne de Vache in steel, a watch that really stole my heart last year, or a Lange 1815 chronograph. To each his own, of course, and you're obviously still getting a hell of a watch with this Patek, but I wouldn't go out of my way to get one, or would even pay retail, to be frank. In conclusion, I feel a bit shortchanged by this chronograph, and feel it's aimed more at the peacock crowd than at the enthusiast of the brand. Having said that, as a late entry competitor to the Royal Oak Offshore, it is a much more accomplished product, being an integrated chronograph, not modular like the AP, which allows a much thinner case at under 12mm, pushers that align with the crown, and a date wheel flushed to the dial. Let me know how you feel about it based on my video here. I might do a 180 on it and learn to love it, but I think the size alone will keep it out of my grail list. Take care, guys.